unique term. And since the call just got kicked off, good morning, everyone on the West Coast, and good afternoon all the way across the country and internationally. I see you, Kathy, from Canada. My name is Bobby Mann. I'm the Chief Programs Officer for Humane Rescue Alliance in St. Hubert's. So honored to be hosting the call today. And before the recording started, we started with a bit of a question for the group. We talk about terms like forever home or foster failure, and they tend to create barriers. And so our question is, do you have a new innovative term that you use instead of forever home? Looks like Sierra says their new home. Ed Jameson, I saw you unmute for a second. Did you have something you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I've seen other people as well, loving homes. I believe that the human divorce rate is around 50% right now. So the expectation, humans who can talk to each other and communicate, have a 50% rate of failure, and the expectation that it's supposed to be 100% from animals, I think is completely setting up for failure and ostracizes those who don't. So loving home, we're going to assume they're loving, and sometimes they come back and it's didn't last forever.
I love that. 50%. Wow. Well, hopefully, as far as this sustainability rate of this group, if you're loving this call, we hope you'll stay married to it for a while, because we love having you. Say new family, part of the family, loving home. I love all of this. So we're going to give it another minute or two. I know, Brandy, you had an opportunity to introduce yourself. Helen, you had an opportunity to introduce yourself. Is there anybody else that is new on the call for the first time? We'd love for you to unmute, introduce yourselves.
I'm new to the call.
You go first.
Hi, Deborah LaCrone. I'm new to the call. I'm from the Humane Society of Delaware County. I'm the volunteer coordinator and community outreach manager. So I'm interested in this and the fact that a lot of our volunteers not only are volunteers, but also fosters. And we do a lot of our own marketing on our Facebook. We do offsite events talking about different services that we have, including our foster program. So, making sure that we're using better terminology, like you're just saying, the forever home. We're one of those that always use that in our posts. So we'll be bringing that up at our managers meeting tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, you're on a great call, because we have one of my personal heroes, Kelly Duer, on this call that's going to talk all things foster. And Andrew, let's come over to you. Thank you so much for being polite and giving someone else your turn.
Okay. I may have been on one of these calls before, but I'm on so many new Zoom calls now that I can't keep them all straight. But I'm from the Scratching Post in Cincinnati. And we're transitioning right now. It's been a very conservative organization for a long time, and we're trying to turn into a modern cat shelter.
Very cool. Well, welcome. Well, it sounds like it's turning into a jam-packed session. There's almost 200 of us collecting on a Monday morning or afternoon, which makes me very excited. I'm also very excited that I have someone very special that's going to be helping open up this call. But before that, I also saw an old friend who I haven't seen in a while, Sarah Miller. So I just wanted to send a special thank you to you. And I see that you're back at AMPA, which makes me really happy. So without further ado, as many of you know who have been long timers for this call, we've typically had some of these calls opened up by a very special guest. For Mary's Monday Motivation. And we have Mary Smith from the executive leadership team of Maddies Fund that's going to be joining us for a quick hello. So over to you, Mary.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm on the West Coast. So this weekend marked the Lunar New Year. And this is a holiday that celebrates the birth of spring. It's filled with just really beautiful symbolic rituals that ensure good luck and good health and longevity. And it's also associated with animals, and that the spirit and energy and love of animals is conferred to people to help us face the challenges in our life. And this year is the year of the rabbit. I'm very proud to report that in my birth year, I am the year of the snake. And I'm very, very excited about that. But it's also a holiday that was marred with tragedy, as many of you may know. So I would encourage all of us on this call, in our communities, in our organizations, to make space for people to process what happened, to grieve what happened, to understand that the world out there is definitely becoming a much more dangerous place for all of us. And so what can we do to provide safe havens for those we love, those we work with, those in our communities? And if you're wondering where you can find resources, I would encourage you, if you have an EAP program, employee assistance program, as part of your organization, to reach out to them. If you have a healthcare plan, reach out to them. There are lots and lots of resources available to help us understand what's going on in the world and the way it impacts us. And it does impact all of us. It does create trauma, and it's trauma directly to us and indirect to us. We've had people come on these calls and talk to us about the impact of that and what that means for us. And it's important that we continue to work in this area, in this space, to do as much as we can for the people closest to us. So I'm heartbroken, doesn't even begin to express what I feel about something so beautiful as the Lunar New Year and the celebrations that we all want to participate in. And we should keep focused on those. I think that there's just something beautiful about the Chinese and the Vietnamese cultures and other Asian cultures that celebrate Lunar New Year, that really have symbolically chosen animals to really to be our spirit guides, if you will, as we go forward. And that for all of us in the animal community, that should be first and foremost as such a beautiful tribute to the work that we do. And so I hope all of you will figure out for yourselves, for your organizations, for your coworkers, opportunities for them to come together to talk about whatever they may be feeling, and to help them as they figure out how to move forward in the face, again, of such tragedy. I wish I could say something more than that. I apologize on this Monday morning, but the world continues to impact all of us in these ways. Our job is to figure out how we can go forward. Together on these calls is really the best antidote. And as we can share together, even in this virtual space, I think it helps. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary Smith. Always reminding us and grounding us that as we want to do more for pets, it's all centered around the people that love pets and support the work. And without creating healthy communities for ourselves, the work just becomes harder. So that's really, for me, the beauty of this community is not only having leaders like Mary step up and hold us accountable to supporting our staff, but also just creating braver, safer spaces. And so if there are specifically BIPOC members of this group here from the Asian community that need additional time or space and would like to have additional conversations, please send me a private message. There are affinity groups that have been created just to have really safe conversations. So I'd love to invite you to some of those during the week. But before we get in deeper into the conversation and our main attendee, who is Kelly Duer, our main presenter, we want to open up the floor for national updates.
Hey, Bobby, since no one else is speaking, I'd like to say something. I'm Jody Robertson, and I'm a veterinarian, and I have been hosting meditation gatherings and other online gatherings to create those safe spaces that you were talking about, Bobby. And so this Thursday is the first one of the year. And for the purpose of this Thursday's meeting, I'm going to be setting an intention gathering. So that's it's a time for people to come join, videos on or off. And we'll be thinking about who we want to be in this year, like how we want to show up, and grounding ourselves in a breathing practice, and also setting an intention for our work for the year. So this is a free event. I just posted it right here in the chat. And again, you can come completely anonymously. And the idea is to create a community of support and kind of meditation, contemplative practices, and gathering. Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you, Jyoti. And for folks that have attended any of those calls before, feel free to put in the chat just your own experiences. Nancy, let's go over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy Peterson. I am sitting in my home in Carbondale, Colorado, which is Western Colorado. I'm a board member of the National Kitten Coalition, and so very special. We are celebrating our 15th year, our 15th anniversary. So if you don't follow us or you don't know about us, please check us out at kittencoalition.org. We have just wonderful resources from anyone from novice to professional to save more kittens.
Awesome. Thank you, Nancy. Gina, let's go over to you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Gina Clemmer. I am the director and founder of Clinic HQ. We're a software designed for high volume spay, neuter, and wellness. My updates today include we have created a manual for anyone who's doing high volume vaccine clinics. So we've created the manual and a strategy that allows you to do 70 animals in 3 hours with a staff of 6 people. So that manual includes the flow, how to do it, best practices in terms of the forms and the aftercare documents. So we have free templates that you can download, and also just the overall strategy for how to do it. So I'll place the link in the chat for that manual. Anyone can download the manual. You don't have to be a Clinic HQ user. So it's designed for anyone who does high volume vaccine clinics. And then the second thing is we have a Facebook group called Spay Neuter Central that just hit a big milestone. We have 1,000 members who all work at high volume nonprofit spay neuter clinics. So if anyone's interested in that, connecting, and sometimes it's humorous, there's a lot of good resources, there's a lot of just sense of community. So we invite anyone who is a part of a spay neuter clinic to join our Facebook group.
Gina, okay. Shout out to Gina, because let's just throw it out there. For-profit companies, if you're going to come to this call and give a shout out, come with some dope resources like this. I already have your little handbook open. We actually use Clinic HQ at HRA. So I'm really excited to see the work regarding community programs. Because as we talk about keeping families together, folks, this is a lot of the work. So Michelle, let's go over to you.
Thanks, Bobby. I'm Michelle Nichols, and from the Animal Hospice Group, we're globally now. We have education and support offered for people that want to learn more about how to care for beloved animals under their care, as they have chronic illness and terminal illness and are nearing the end of life. Because of the interest in this group, we have developed a video that's called Practical Animal Hospice Care, and it's on, among many other things, nursing care for these pets and what you can do to help out. So it will be available February 2nd through the 16th. You can learn more by signing up on our website, and I'll put that in the chat right now. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. I love all these very polite hands that are raised, but I also saw my good friend Kathy, the international phenomenon, say that she has an international update. So Kathy, let me come to you before I forget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mann. Just a reminder, folks, that the registration is open for the Humane Canada Summit for Animals 2023 to be held in beautiful Victoria, BC. And if you register before January the 31st, you can get an early bird discount. The summit will be held May 2nd through 4th, as I mentioned, in Victoria. And so it will cost you less to register if you're from the US, because US dollars are at a premium here in Canada. Hope to see many of you there. That's it for me, Bobby.
Thanks, Kathy. Elena? I don't think I can hear you. Anybody else having sound issues?
We can see you, Elena. We can't hear you, but your mic is on, apparently. Maybe you want to log out and log back in again.
Yeah, if not, feel free to just drop your update into the chat. I'm sure people would be happy to read it there. And as you figure out those tech issues, Dr. Segerson, I'm going to toss it over to you.
Hi, Dr. Sheila Segerson from Maddies Fund. Just a quick announcement that the Haas Behavior Job Alike is meeting this week. Dr. Mick McAuliffe will be our speaker, talking about a topic that is hopefully useful to a lot of you, and that is incorporating behavior into the everyday. So many of us struggle with not having enough behavior people, and this is all about what you can do without a behavior team. So I will put the link to registration in chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Segerson. And for the folks that have not heard about the Human Animal Support Services Project, it is an absolute treat for you. So when we talk about the human animal bond, the Haas Project was really built to bring shelters across the country together, and even non-shelter organizations from across the world. Kathy, I see you shaking your hands at me, to talk about the future of sheltering. And so job alikes are affinity groups where folks can come together with certain jobs, whether it's animal care, behavior, animal control, to talk about the work. And there's also lots of other resources. I see a few folks from the Haas family on the website or on the call. So please put some additional resources in. And does anybody want to talk about the Open Arms Challenge before we move on? I know we're getting a little tight on time, but Maddies, we have such a huge opportunity for folks on this call. Does anybody want to mention it?
Hey, Bobby. Good morning. So nice to see you. Amber EB Grant Specialist at Maddies Fund here. And I feel like Irene and I probably didn't mention this because we were too busy answering all of your great questions and helping folks get into the portal. But yes, the Open Arms Challenge, which is in collaboration with a bunch of great partners for Maddies Fund, 23 national organizations. The registrations opens today. You have a chance to win $420,000 in grants are up for competition. So I'll go ahead and put the link to register in the chat right now, and we look forward to seeing your application soon. Ooh, and Allison, thanks for the additional information too.
Folks, almost $500,000 up for grabs. And all you got to do, as Maddies would say, is be a good human. So please sign up, please register. It's going to be so fun to hear a lot of those presentations coming up on future calls. Elena, really quickly, we're going to toss to you because I got to toss to the amazing Shannon to open up our presenter after that.
Let me know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Perfect.
Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. Just a quick intro. It's my first time on the call. I am the head of animal welfare for a 501c3 nonprofit in California called Nova Ukraine. And we specifically focus on helping animals in Ukraine with the current ongoing war. It is a new direction that we started since the beginning of the war. So we work primarily with active zones. We do evacuations, shelter expansions, preventative and urgent medical care. We kind of cover all the bases. We've been able to help over 60,000 animals. So I did find out about Maddies Fund because I used to work for the shelter medicine team at the San Francisco SPCA, my favorite shelter of all time. So I'm hoping that maybe I can find some more connection in the US because we've kind of exhausted all of our resources in Europe. Europe is really, really tired. And I think that North America is still an untapped market. So hopefully I'm really hoping to find some connections here for further helping these animals.
Well, when you talk about connections, there's over 260 folks on this call. So definitely the goal here is to build community. And thank you so much for being here. So as we get into our main event, I'm going to toss it over to one of our other key steering committee members, Shannon Roebuck, who is going to introduce our amazing presenter today.
Yes. So Kelly Duer will be talking to us about Foster Solutions. She's the Senior Community Solutions Specialist at Maddies Fund, where her focus is on helping shelters and rescue organizations increase life saving through the implementation of robust foster care programs. So I will hand it over to Kelly now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to be here. I've been really excited about doing this presentation. Just really quick. All right, are you seeing the right screen there?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we're in a interesting time right now in the industry that we have intake is brisk in most areas, but adoptions not so much. So length of stay in a lot of places is increasing. So we're going to talk about successful techniques organizations around the country are using to place pets in foster and then move those pets onto permanent homes more quickly. I'm going to be bouncing around kind of a little bit, but what I'm kind of hoping to do is give you a buffet of different techniques that people are using. So hopefully everybody will get a strategy or two that they want to try out, and you can try them out in your own combinations and see what works. And then later we're going to talk about we're going to see some examples of foster pleas and websites, and then discuss the strategies that they use to make them successful. But I'm going to start off with Ruby. She was kind of she was at Ventura County Animal Services. I was there for a foster study about 5 years ago. She was one of their longest stay dogs. She'd been there about over a year. She was kind of an unremarkable brown dog. She was pretty, but she was, a dog that tended to be overlooked. What was hard was that in the shelter, she was really nervous and she was pretty barrier reactive. And then when you took her out to the play yard, she like almost actively disengaged people because she was stressed. So it was really hard to like make a connection with her. And nobody really knew who she was. So as she was one of the longest stays, I took out a couple of the dogs who were, and she was one of them. And we went on an overnight in my hotel room. And what I found out was that she was exactly the opposite dog outside of the shelter. She was not only engaging with me, but like she was incredibly attuned. And I got specific examples like when we're walking, she keeps looking back to make sure I was with her. And like by the morning, she was so in tune that if we're walking, she had like a natural heel. Like I didn't even have to say we're turning left. She just would look at me and turn. And when something frightened her, she came close to me. So I did a little write-up for the volunteers. They had a foster Facebook or a volunteer and foster Facebook group, and I wrote up our story. And she didn't get adopted right away, but it was really interesting what happened. The volunteers, I think it was about a month or so before she got adopted, and the volunteers in the meantime, they started writing me and they were like, Ruby, she's doing so much better. The overnight, I think it gave her confidence. She's interacting with us more, she's doing much better. And I thought about it for a while and I realized that that's probably not the case. Probably what happened was that getting feedback on how Ruby was outside of the shelter put her on their radar and made them look for those qualities that I had seen. It also made them want to take her on field trips, like the picture on the right, and they were able to see that side of her. And so, foster can be just so helpful. Even short periods of foster can be so helpful in learning about pets and engaging with them and teaching other people how they like to engage. But first, we have some new foster research on cats that's really, really exciting. There is a widespread belief in our industry that short-term foster for cats is detrimental. In fact, looking at I was looking for an example for our next slide about short-term foster for cats, and I went through a number of organizations that on their website said, things like short-term foster for cats is detrimental. I am not sure that there is research that says that. I think it is just kind of our widely held belief. However, there is a study that just came out, Dr. Kristen Vitale. She's going to be coming to our Maddie's Insights and speaking on February 9th about this study that she just completed. The study ends by saying cat fostering, even short-term fostering, may not be more stressful or problematic for the species than remaining in a shelter, and could contribute to life-saving efforts by allowing cats to move into homes when shelter space is limited. So that for me was just really kind of it blew my mind, because there is a possibility that short-term foster for cats, at least overnights and longer, can be really helpful. Short-term foster I talk about this all the time, and I don't want to go too far into it, but participants, if you have field trips, if you have overnights, if you ask for people to foster for a week or 2 weeks, it lowers the bar for entry to foster. And you have the participants who become adopters, they become longer term fosters, they become advocates for the pets, and you get so much information on how the pet is outside of the shelter. A lot of the organizations, you know, in the US had short-term foster programs before the pandemic, and a lot of them ended up closing them down because of COVID, because of staffing and things like that. So if you are looking for a sign that your program needs to be relaunched, this is it. Do it. This guy on the right here is Clyde, and it's one other reason for a short-term foster. He was a dog I took home for a weekend a couple of years ago, and he had been terrible in the shelter, like seriously, like his energy, he just was like, he was losing it. Nobody wanted to take him out. You know, they've been begging for fosters. So I said, you know, we have like 2 days, and we'll take him for 2 days and just see what, you know, what he's like. Turns out outside the shelter, he was just like a big couch potato. And what happened was I put a write-up on our social media volunteer group, and one of the other fosters ended up deciding to long-term foster him from us. And she said, I would never have done this on my own, but seeing how he is in your home has helped me to be comfortable doing it. And he did great with her. So short-term foster, getting that information can be so important for just like so many reasons. Marketing and adopting pets from foster homes. I could probably talk about this for the next like 6 hours. I'm going to tell you just the highlights. So setting expectations for fosters. Hey, one of the things we really need from you is to help us market the pet. We need pictures, we need video, we need your write-ups and stories, and then using those to promote the pet. Giving fosters training and support. If you know, you can do all kinds of things. One of the things a lot of organizations like to do is to just they create or they offer fosters a little, you know, a book like the one on the right, which is a 4-page booklet that explains like the very basics of foster marketing, and it helps people to understand what they're looking for and what they need to do. Most importantly, making the marketing process easy on fosters and easy on you. The foster marketing process is one of those things where if the process is not super efficient, it can be a really unwieldy because you have all of these loose ends. You have people sending you emails and it, you know, it's hard to make sure to compile them, save them where they need to be, get them to the right place. So this process could look like a special email where people send you information and photos. It could be a Google form. It could be a Facebook group where fosters can post about pets. It could be a resource page. Whatever it is, I highly recommend integrating volunteer support and having a like SOP for like, this is how we take the information we get and how we put it, you know, make it go to the pet's online profile and social media and make sure that it gets used. So that process, if you don't have a process that's working for you, definitely troubleshooting is a really good idea. I'm calling this one Special Foster Initiatives because we're here in January. There aren't really any holidays other than Valentine's Day coming up. So I was like, holiday foster, it's maybe, so the special ones are kind of in between emergency foster and holiday foster. I think the major thing about it is that the event stands out because something is happening. Charlottesville Albemarle SPCA every winter does several snow fosters, and it's like sometimes it's like half an inch of snow, like hardly anything, but it gets the community excited. They're like, you know, get snowed in with a shelter dog. And they put out a press release and they put out things on social media and to their fosters. And they usually get quite a few dogs placed in foster because of them. So, you know, any, you know, it can be very, very easy and simple. So foster to adopt. one thing I really like about foster to adopt that I'm realizing is that it doesn't have to be for every pet all the time. You can do a pilot, and I'll tell you a story about this organization, or just do it with certain pets, or do it for a certain amount of time. If you don't have to like go whole hog. You might want to just concentrate on certain pets who need it. So Ohio Alley Cat Resource and Spay Neuter Clinic, they in November, they had a volunteer who had this idea. And she said, for the month of November, we're gonna take our longest stay cats, I think there were like 19 of them, and we're gonna do foster to adopt and see what we can do. And I don't believe they'd ever done it before. All of the cats had been there over 6 months. Many of them had special needs that made it more difficult for them to find adopters. And they promoted them on social media. They did a lot of marketing of them, and they got a lot of them into foster to adopt during this time. So what the results were that 8 of their longest stay cats got adopted during this month, including one who was diabetic and who needed insulin every single day. So they got some really, really needy and cats into foster to adopt. One of the things I love about foster to adopt, especially with pets who have medical or behavioral needs that maybe just a little bit more, is that it's like, even when you adopt, obviously you can contact the organization again, but it's maybe harder because you don't have like a point of contact, or you don't know that person. But when you foster to adopt, it's like that connection isn't quite broken. And I think people feel more comfortable asking for support. And from what I've seen, especially when you're talking about pets with behavior issues, and so that support, you're able to give that support to those adopters and the pets. Oh, and that's the cat that was diabetic. Kitty. Virtual foster. Okay. Technically, this is not a foster program, but it's kind of the next best thing. There's different definitions of virtual foster, but basically it's usually where one person gets to know a pet personally, and is like a consistent presence in that pet's life. They spend time with them on site. Sometimes they'll do short-term foster care if they have field trips, overnights, things like that. At the organization this dog was from, they also wrote bios, they took pictures, they helped with adoption and foster counseling and support, which is really, really helpful when you have a pet who has a behavior issue or something that the foster will need more support with. And I believe that this organization is moving toward a team model. So they're having teams around pets, but this is Christy and Dash. Dash was he was a tough dog. He was touch sensitive, and like to get his leash on took quite a while for them to reliably be able to do it in a safe way. He was not doing well in the shelter. Christy was his virtual foster, and she took him every week. The organization had a group walk, and she would always bring him, and she would always, be talking to us about like what are the things she can do to help him and stuff like that. Well, in the meantime, she realized that his teeth were in terrible shape. And he also had really, really bad arthritis. So he was in an extraordinary amount of pain. They were able to get his medical needs met. And while they were doing that, Christy networked with the volunteers and found him an experienced behavior foster that the organization that fostered for the organization. Then when he moved into her house, Christy supported them virtually and in person, and they were able to make it work until about 6 months later when the foster decided to adopt him. And so it was a huge win for a dog that just needed the type of support that the program was able to give. Okay, so now we're going to do, I need to see the chat. So if you, sorry, Oh, okay. First, Julie Lonnie. This is such a good question. Looking for a study that confirms that foster dogs get adopted more readily than those kept in the shelter. There's some research coming out from Dr. Lisa Gunter and her team at Arizona State University. I promised her I would not spill the beans until the scientific article came out. So I can't say it, but hopefully in the next few months it'll be out and it has that data, at least for field trips and overnights, and it's really exciting, like to the point where like it pains me not to be able to say it.
Okay.
Have I found that it's easier to recruit short-term fosters? Yes, way easier. I think that the traditionally in our field, foster was kind of thought of a place where like you put a pet in foster and then they kind of get forgotten about and they could end up at your house for like the next 2 years, which is terrifying to most people. But to have a clear beginning and end date, where if the person wants to keep the pet after that, that's totally fine. But it really just makes it a lot easier for people to say yes. And, you know, once they get to the 2 weeks and realize, you know, in a lot of cases that the pet is not, you know, significantly impacting, you know, their lifestyle in a negative way, that maybe they can either keep that pet or they can help to look for another foster for that pet. And so you really, it helps in many ways, but to kind of rally people around a pet as well. So we're going to look at some examples, and I'm going to ask you in the chat if you'll tell me what you think. So this rescue, and I'm gonna make a comment that it is not technically a foster-based rescue. They do have a location. But when you look at this organization's web profile, what is it telling you about the foster program in their organization? You can type in the chat or just unmute and say, yeah, Johanna, the foster program is a priority for them. It's here in the top, in the actual menu, right toward the beginning. And then it says that a foster focused animal rescue. One thing that I don't think people realize is that when a person goes to your webpage and sees foster, it does show people that it's a priority. And there are organizations that I've seen where foster is buried. When I go to their page, it's not in the menu, not in the secondary menu, and you have to really look for it. And I think that makes that definitely says something, you know, unintentionally. All right. Then this one. There's a couple of strategies that this rescue is using on this page. Some strategies or some things that they're doing with the text and the photos. Does anybody have any ideas like for what strategies this foster landing page is using to help people want to become fosters? Yeah, they're showing people fostering, and they're showing a diverse amount, you know, people fostering, which is amazing. They are social proof is one of the it really is a motivator for humans to see that other people that are like them are, you know, doing something. It makes you really comfortable. Somebody in your neighborhood is, you know, has a foster. The other thing, how about the text in the gray at the bottom? Everyone can foster. All right, there's one more thing, and it is something that in our short term, something in our market research that we found was that people don't understand why pets need foster. So when you tell them, it's really a big motivator. So there in the gray, it really talks about this is exactly why the pet, you know, certain pets might need foster. and people understand, that why the pets need to be in foster and what foster does for them. Especially that second to last one about the weak immune systems. Okay, this foster plea is a plea that I asked some friends if they could send me a foster plea that worked recently, and this is one of them. All right, when you read the text, you look at the pictures, what strategies are being used in this plea? And there are quite a few of them. First of all, Bumblebee is adorable, and his legs are about half the lengths that I would expect them to be, and oh my gosh, so adorable. They cover all the costs. The emojis are really interesting to me because I at first did not like using them. However, there is research that says that emojis map to the emotional centers of our brain, and they help us to make that connection. When you see a heart, you emotionally kind of pick that up. So it does help a post to have a little more emotional connection. Laura says showing the specific dogs, not a general ask. I think that's a really big one. When you can see the actual pets who need foster. Friendly, welcoming, it's positive and upbeat. The photos, a lot of them are set outside the shelter. What else? It's short and to the point. And there's a direct link to sign up, so they don't need to go searching for how do I do this. All right, this is one from Palm Valley from a couple of years ago for puppies and kittens. What strategies are being used in this one? There's a time limit. Like we need to foster for a certain amount of time. It's urgent, and it's very, very obvious that it's urgent. Well, it's puppies and kittens, which is a little easier. Variety of animals. They talk about the shelter is full. They tell you the why. In this post, they give you like the background about they're still nursing, they're too small to be placed for adoption, and while they're sitting in the shelter, they have very immune systems that aren't have a harder time fighting illness, and being in a home is a lot safer for them. It gives the options to help, like super quick bullet points for anyone. It asks people to share. We got the emojis going there again. And then the direct link to the foster application. Oops. Sign up is easy and online, no experience required. Correct. All right, next one. All right, so this is an Instagram story that I found. I think it was from about 2 years ago, but I found it like 2 days ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So this was a series of Instagram stories that were asking people fact or fiction about kitten season. But this could easily be tailored to foster and talk about fact and fiction with fosters, with the most common misunderstandings about foster care. And our market research shows that there are about 5 or 6 things that people commonly don't know 5 or 6 common misconceptions about foster. One of them is you have to have a lot of space to foster. And when you discuss why the misconception is there and what actually is the case, it helps people to want to foster more. So this one, so they have tab to play, then you go through the next one and it says you have to have a lot of extra space to foster kittens, fact or fiction, and people can choose. And then the next slide, which I didn't get, was a slide that tells you the answer. So no, you don't need to, and all you need is like a bathroom or an extra room for fostering kittens. So I just really liked the idea and how interactive it is. And also the fact that it is busting myths about foster, which is something that we know can help people to want to foster. Oh, this is another cool idea that I saw recently. So group walks, they can be really good for dogs. And this organization has a group walk once a month where they invite fosters with their foster pets, and then they invite adopters to come meet the dogs on the walks. And it's just another way for them to be able to market dogs from foster homes to the people that are planning to adopt them. And you know, I think you know, it's a really good new way for potential adopters to meet pets, and it's often a really, you know, super safe way because it is so natural. And then the second one is, I commented on a post from this organization a few months ago, and it was a post about foster. I don't even know what I said, but like a day later, I got a DM from a volunteer, and she's from the organization, and she said, "We noticed your comment on the shelter's post about fostering. We're wondering if you were in contact with the shelter, and if not, if you're still interested in fostering a dog in need. Thank you for caring." And I thought, man, that's like service. Like that was pretty exciting to see that they were able to do that. And then lastly, we have a new Maddie's University course on how to place more pets in foster homes. And it goes over several things, including recruitment, you know, retention, marketing pets from foster, and then turning your supporters into fosters. And so it is free and on Maddie's University. And oh, good. Allison put the link in the chat. So have we time for questions? I feel like there were a few up there.
Amazing as always, Kelly. So many great ideas. And I think what I love even more than your presentation is all the innovation going on in the chat. Sounds like a lot of folks have been implementing a lot of these ideas. Let me actually take a look back. I feel like there's a lot more statements than questions, but let's look toward the bottom of this list here. Like folks have already sent multiple ideas. I think the one big question is, how do we get this presentation in front of more people? I think Gina asked if this presentation is going to be anywhere else. Go ahead.
Oh, good. That's a really good question.
Well, as a reminder, after this call, Kelly will be on Maddie's Pet Forum, where all of the calls are recorded. So Gina, if you want to refer this to other people, you can give them that link and they can watch the presentation recording and then also ask questions that we can answer in the future.
Absolutely. That's perfect. And we, you know, and also we have the foster course that will be on Maddie's University for free. I feel like there were a few questions. Oh, we had one person talking about their group walk program, and at Vandenberg Humane Society, and I feel like I used that I actually spoke about it in a presentation somewhere.
And Kelly, there is one question from Lisa about culture. Does anyone have information or resources around bridging the gap between shelter culture, values, and ideas about animals and groups in the community who have very different cultural values and ideas about animals? With enormous cultural sensitivity. I appreciate that last part, Lisa.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I think there I'm probably not I'm not sure if I'm the best person to answer that question. Bobby, I feel like you probably have some good ideas.
Kelly, thank you so much for creating space for me. So I feel like it's, as Lisa mentioned in her question itself, a pretty heavy question. And I think there's too much to unpack there with only 1 minute, because I have so many questions about what are those expectations of the community? What are your expectations? And I think a lot of this actually ties into what Maddie's is going to be focused on, which is the Open Arms Challenge that's coming up, because a big part of that conversation is about inclusion, about getting to know your community, about partnering your community. And also remember that your staff are in fact members of your community. So although your leadership may have a certain perception of the way things should be, it's always important to even go down to the front line of your organization and ask these same questions. But on that, it is 10 till the top of the hour. And as you know, we love to have you have about 10 minutes of your hour left to do other things before your next meeting. I want to give a big shout out to my co-host today, Shannon, Mary Smith, for jumping on early to give us a little bit of motivation and love, and also the amazing Kelly Duer. As a reminder, all of this information is going to be on Maddie's pet form in the link that's likely being provided in the chat. And again, Kelly, thank you so much. And is there anything you would like to say in closing?
Just that I see a couple of questions and I will address them in Maddie's pet forum in just a moment. So thank you all so much for having me here.
Awesome. Happy Monday, everyone.